Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Amma ba'd. Dear Dr. Kenan Salim and Mr. Muhammad Ali Shah, our guest speakers today, and distinguished lecturers, students, attendees, my dear brothers and sisters, we'd like to welcome you all to this special discussion on fintech in Islamic finance in Islamic fintech entrepreneurship, planting the seeds. This is the topic for today. So, as you know, Untitled Chapter, Islamic Economics Association, under the purview of Faculty of Sharia and Islamic Studies, Kuwait University, is trying to nurture Sharia-compliant financial models and standards, and also trying to promote the models and standards through arranging and organizing Islamic financial certified programs, and also certified programs related to Islamic banking and finance. And also we organize under this umbrella of Untitled Chapter lectures and programs, talks, workshops, trainings, which usually cover a wide range of Islamic banking, Islamic microfinance, Islamic insurance, Islamic capital market, and equity market, and so on.
Dr. Muhyiddin, I think we lost you.
I think it's the internet lag. Should we start perhaps, or we should wait for Dr. Muhyiddin?
Okay, we can, let's wait a few seconds until he came back. Dr. Muhyiddin, welcome back.
Welcome back. Doctor, you are muted.
Yes, suddenly, no, it was just disconnected. Sorry, we apologize. So as I said, and we also organize some specific, some programs and talks with specific topics. So this is a part of our English programs under the Untitled Chapter. I mean, today's program on Islamic fintech entrepreneurship, planting the seeds. So as you see, we have two speakers for today, Dr. Kenan Salim and Mr. Muhammad Ali Shah. So Dr. Kenan specializes in Islamic fintech, social impact data, and sustainable finance. And he led Islamic fintech and sustainable finance projects with local and international organizations in Southeast Asia and Middle East. Currently, Mr. and Dr. Kenan serves as an assistant professor and project lead of iConnect Fintech in Islamic Finance in International Center for Education in Islamic Finance, which is famous as INSIF in Malaysia. And today we have second speaker, Mr. Muhammad Ali Shah, who is currently the Chief Business Officer at ShopIQ.SDN, BSD, as well as the Distinguished Industry Fellow at the Center for Sustainable Studies at the University of Utara, Malaysia. And he was head of Islamic Digital Economy and Fintech at Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation. Shah has a proven track record of helping both the public and private sector in running impactful national and regional-wide programs for stakeholders to take full advantage of new and innovative technologies so that they can compete in a rapidly changing market. Outside of his work commitments, Shah is actively engaged in digital advocacy, thought leadership, writing and speaking about digital ecosystem development, digital strategy, and transformation at both domestic and international forums. He has appeared in many reputable media talk shows and industrial magazines. So this is our honor to have Mr. Muhammad Ali Shah and esteemed Professor Dr. Kinan Selim for today's discussion. So I think firstly, I would like to invite Mr. Muhammad Ali Shah to talk on Islamic fintech entrepreneurship, planting the seeds. Please welcome Mr. Ali Shah.
You are on mute, Badr Muhammad.
Okay, is it clear now? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Muhyiddin, for the introduction. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah man wala. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to all. It is always a pleasure to be able to share thoughts and ideas with scholars and youth who are deemed to change this world for the better. Let me just share my screen and then we can start. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Right. All right. So today, Dr. Kinan and I will basically address or to actually provoke some thoughts in your minds when it comes to changing the world, let's say, right? They say people like Tim Cook or Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk have changed the world. But I will today showcase alongside Dr. Kinan that it is actually our Muslim youth who's actually driving, at least at large, and upholding the essence of Amana that we hold so dear today. So before I start, just a disclaimer. What Dr. Kinan and I will talk about are the views based on our experiences. It may or may not reflect the organizations that we represent. And also, being an ex-civil servant and an academic, we both are regarded as, I can't speak for Dr. Kinan so much, I'll just speak for myself, as people who lack some humor. So we have got two assistants with us, Kelvin and Hobbs. If any of you would remember, from our age group, in the late 90s, there were comic books which became quite famous in North America, at least. There were these two characters who used to talk about profound ideas, but they were expressing it in a very humorous way. So today we will be looking at addressing profound ideas, but in a more casual and humorous way as well. And Kelvin and Hobbs are there to help us out. So the journey today is divided into two parts. I will start off by discussing what exactly is an entrepreneur. What kind of challenges do they face? What questions do they ask themselves? And we glorify a lot of Western entrepreneurs for what they have done, but we hardly glorify the people who are doing and serving the communities in the Islamic world and for the Islamic Ummah. So I think they do deserve our gratitude as well. And we'll discuss some of them too during the discussion, right? So I will be addressing the part whereby how do we understand a successful entrepreneur? And then we will take it further to see how ideas become reality. Reality, I mean, as commercialized business, what we call it as startups, right? So we will discuss startup life cycle as well. And Dr. Kinan will come and talk about technology, the role of financial technology in banking, He will also make some distinctions of how Islamic banking differs from conventional side and how technology plays a role in this differentiation as well, right? So without ado, let me just start, which is the first stage of talking about what entrepreneur is, right? Let's talk broadly about what entrepreneur is. Conventional definition of an entrepreneur is an individual who starts business or number of businesses and takes risks in order to get profits, right? So it is driven by profit. That is the conventional broad definition of an entrepreneur. Now, if we are to say what constitutes a successful entrepreneur from a conventional definition, it means that anyone who has scaled a business and has earned a lot of money is successful. That is a conventional definition. Now let's look at what constitutes a Muslim entrepreneur, right? There is no exact definition per se because people have different views about it. But how I would define it is an individual who forms businesses and takes risks in order to uphold Islamic values and amana, and at the same time makes profits, right? So let's just do some differentiation here. When we're talking about conventional entrepreneur, the success is driven or defined by profit. And for a Muslim entrepreneur, success is not only just defined by profits, it's defined by what impact that they have created in the community. What positive impact is there, right? I am not saying that the entire conventional entrepreneurial spirits do not have any sort of impact or social connotation to them. They are. A lot of universities are offering sustainable programs, conventional ethics courses, etc., etc. But when they pitch themselves as social enterprises, right? Whereas Muslim entrepreneurs do not pitch themselves as social entrepreneurs, they pitch themselves as they are, because the social responsibility is already ingrained in them. Meaning to say, not all conventional entrepreneurs are social entrepreneurs or green entrepreneurs, but all Muslim entrepreneurs are social entrepreneurs and green entrepreneurs. That is the major distinction, right? We do not go about screaming that, we donate to charity. Like it goes, when you give from your right hand, your left hand should not know about it. That is the value sets that we hold upon, right? So with that, let me introduce you to the two successful Muslim entrepreneurs. We could have easily had pictures of, likes of Tim Cook of Apple, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, or Elon Musk of Tesla. But when we want to introduce Islamic entrepreneurs, there are plenty of them, but I mean, given the time that we have, we will discuss two. Of course, Junaid Waheed is quite a celebrity when we are talking about micro investments. Waheed is a micro investment platform that allows young people to save and to invest. Waheed was one of the first pioneering company that actually introduced Sharia compliant micro investments to the world. It started off in the United States, and I'll discuss Waheed a little bit more because we've prepared a case study on this. And we'll see how Waheed grew from a very small startup to what it is now. They're valued at over $100 million US, right? Sorry, go to the next. Okay, then from our Southeast Asian region, we've got Andreas Sanjaya. Andreas Sanjaya is very popular in Indonesia and in Malaysia alike for providing sustainable businesses for small farmers. As it is, Indonesia is an agricultural-based country. And what Sanjaya has done is that they have provided IoTs for small businesses to actually measure what is the yield like, growth like, and most of what they have done is for free. And when we are talking about how Sanjaya makes money, when we were talking about business models later on, you will see how the ability of actually earning profits at the same time giving back to the community. But these two individuals, they never pitch themselves as social entrepreneurs because they know that what they do is ingrained already in their value sets as Muslims, right? But how they reached where they reached is because of their distinct abilities. Let's talk about some of those abilities, yeah? The first one is the ability to differentiate between utility and functionality. This is a concept that is not new, but it is not talked about very often. And this is where a lot of confusion starts. Yes?
Sorry to disturb. I think the slides are not moving, so maybe you just can try to move the slides.
Is it moving now?
And
which slide is it stuck on? Can I, let me try to
maybe you can make it bigger first. I mean, full screen.
It is full screen actually.
It's still the first slide, yeah.
Oh, okay. Just give me a moment. Sorry. Let me load it again, yeah?
Okay.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So where were we? Okay, let's start from when we are talking about distinct abilities of entrepreneurs and where they are now and what they were and the journey from A to B, right? First of all, one distinct ability that encompasses is the ability to differentiate between utility and functionality. This is an ability that is looked, it's not really addressed most of the time, but it is an important, it's an extremely important ability to have. And I'll discuss this in detail in a bit. The other one is the ability to innovate and disrupt. We will also discuss what innovation is and what is disruption, right? Once they have these two ingrained in what they do, in their DNA, then that translates into the ability to take calculated risk. We will also address what do we mean by calculated risk. We can all take risks, but what is calculated risk? We'll discuss that as well. And the ability to set trends and to create impact. And that is very, very important. The trend that Wahid said was basically having ingrained into the young population in North America that you need to save and spend less, and you need to invest into Sharia compliant instruments as opposed to conventional instruments. Sanjaya was that everyone can adopt technology. You don't have to be a tech enthusiast to actually utilize technology. You can be a farmer in a rural area of Indonesia, but you can adopt technology and it is easy to adopt, right? So they were trend setters. And impact, of course, Sanjaya was into building sustainable agricultural businesses for, the not so privileged socioeconomic group in Indonesia. Junaid was towards educating the youth in the essence of savings and investment for the future, right? Let's start with what functionality is, right? Simply put, functionality is what something is used for or what something does. Just keep that in mind. We'll have examples later on. What something is used for and what something does. And that usability is consistent. Just keep that in mind for a minute. What something does is consistent. Now, what is utility is the condition of something being useful. How useful is something? That is in state of flux. It keeps changing. Functionality remains consistent, whilst the utility is in the state of flux and evolving, right? That is the definition. Now, let me explain this a little bit further by giving some examples. Let's talk about telephones. In 1885, when the telephone came about, the function of the telephone was to connect people, through people or talking to one another, connecting. In 1965, we had proper telephones coming in. And what was the functionality? It was connecting people. People were talking. In 1990, when cellular phones came into being, it was again connecting people. Now, when in 2013, when smartphone became proliferated and became very popular, what was the bottom line of, as far as function is concerned? It was connecting people. Yes, people can say, you know, now we've got videos, we can do WhatsApp, we can do FaceTime, iMessages, etc., etc. But the core essence is connecting people. Then someone is going to ask the question, what about e-commerce, right? What is happening in e-commerce via a mobile phone? Buyers and sellers are connecting. So the function of telephone or mobile device that we've got is connecting. I've got a niece who's 3-year-old this year. According to her, people are not talking when they cannot see their face. So when I talk to her, she would always say, where is your video? If she can't see my video, she would think we are not talking, right? I mean, that is a 3-year-old. So when we are talking about things that are up and coming, so from purely visual, now, so from purely audio, now we are moving towards visual, right? In the next phase, we will have holograms where you can actually see the people appearing in a hologram, right? That is the utility, the usefulness. If you see, the usefulness has evolved and it will continue evolving, but the function of the mobile phone will remain the same, which is ultimately to connect. So you see what I'm getting at. When we look at innovation, it will make even more sense. Entrepreneurs can actually differentiate this. Successful entrepreneurs can actually differentiate what exactly is something's functionality, and what we are currently doing is adding towards its usefulness as it evolves. And we need to think about how the usefulness will evolve in the next 5 to 6 years. Technology evolves very fast, so anything more than 5 years or so is very difficult to predict. But setting a trend towards the next 5 years is what they think about, and they think about usefulness of a certain thing. They don't bother about the functionality of it because they know what the functionality is, and it will be stagnant and it will be consistent. They'll focus more on the usefulness of it, right? Let's talk about banks. From a functional perspective, when the first bank in 1470 in Italy came about, it was financial intermediation. At present, we've got branch banking, which is also financial intermediation. In the future, we are looking at virtual banking. You have to wear these, AR, VR headsets, and it will take you through a 3-dimensional or 4-dimensional branch. You can be sitting in your living room, but at the same time, you could be inside a bank branch, right? But what is happening? It is financial intermediation, right? So the function itself remains consistent. Now, a lot of startups in the fintech realm, they say that what they are doing, if, let's say, for example, let's define this, right? If an organization is receiving deposits and they are indulged in lending, that is financial intermediation, right? a lot of fintech are doing it. They're receiving deposits and they're into giving out financing, but they claim that they're not banks. This is not because they are trying to change the function. They're doing this so that they can get away from regulatory scrutiny. That's about it. Because once they say that they are banks, they're under the purview of the central bank. So what they do is they say, oh, no, we are not banks, but we do transactional business. So this is where it's very, very important to understand the function of something. If they are indulging themselves in financial intermediation, then they are banks. So this is where regulators need to pay extra attention as to what fintech activity may be, right? So raising a banner of disruption or saying we are not banks or the banking will change in the future. Yes, the banking may evolve into something else. We've seen it in the past, from physical bank to online banking and now to virtual banking, but this is from a utility standpoint. It is not changing the core functionality of the bank. And this is where bankers need to be extra vigilant. When startups or a company talks and says that we are not in the same sector, yes, they are. They're doing exactly the same thing as the banks are, right? So the importance is paramount that we understand what is going on, right? So basically, what I'm trying to say is that it goes beyond. So let's say if they are trying to say that they are non-banking entities, this goes beyond into the realm of regulatory framework and also basically what they are, right? So this is my personal take that the function of the banks will remain as financial intermediation, and banks will not go away anytime soon. May it be that people are saying that they're going to be electronic, currency that will come in, or transaction will be, of course, transaction already are electronic. They're saying there will be digital currencies or electronic currencies or cryptocurrencies, which will be more decentralized, et cetera, et cetera. But we have to pay attention to what the core function that they're doing. If they're taking deposits and if they are indulging themselves into financing or lending, that is financial intermediation, and that is the core function of the bank, right? Now, let's talk about innovation. Let's start off with what innovation actually means. Government of New Zealand actually defines innovation as the creation, development, implementation of new product, process, or services with the aim of improving efficiency, effectiveness, or competitive advantage. This is a very generic overall sort of definition, but not just encompasses technology, but it encompasses all aspects of an organization. So may it be the financial aspect, may it be the operational aspect, may it be the HR, etc. That's if there is an enhancement that comes into play, that is considered innovation. Now, UK Department of Innovation and Skills defines it as successful exploitation of new ideas, which is true as well. Innovation is not just restricted towards something which is completely new, out of the box completely, right? That may be innovation, yes, but innovation can be an enhancement towards existing process. So if there is a slight enhancement towards a gadget, so let's say, I'll give you an example. Apple releases iPhone every year, right? There might be very minute enhancement every year. For example, the camera from 2000 last year and the iPhone 13 that is coming may have a very minute difference in terms of enhancement. Is that considered innovation? Yes, it is considered innovation. So if there is an enhancement that actually helps the usefulness of a certain process, it's considered innovation, right? Now, what is disruption? Disruption is introducing change which interrupts an event, activity, or a process. So this is pretty much in line with what innovation actually is. So disruption is actually a subset of innovation. So you have an innovation overall, right? What we are going to discuss innovation from an entrepreneurial perspective. So here onwards, when I use the term innovation or disruption, it will be more from a entrepreneurial perspective. Of course, a lot of innovation that is going about, which may not be, monetized or commercializable, but it's still innovation. But what I'm going to address is innovation from an entrepreneurial side, right? When we're talking about disruption and innovation interlinked, there are 4 things that are very crucial to address. Number 1, disruption and innovation is utility driven, right? What I've talked about, usefulness. It addresses the usefulness of a certain product or service, right? It also addresses what kind of newness does it bring about, or enhancement does it bring about? Does it change the way we think of a certain, does it change the way we work? I'll give you an example. 30 years ago, accounting was there. 100 years ago, accounting was there. At the beginning, we were taking notes on a ledger, writing by pen. Then typewriter came, right? From writing, it became to tapping words and numbers into the paper. Does it change the way we work? Yes, it does. Does it change the function of accounting? No, it doesn't, right? Then from typewriters, it went into spreadsheets. A lot faster. Utility became a lot more different, Then does the function change? No, it doesn't. Does the usefulness of a certain activity changes? Yes, it did, right? So keeping in mind that it's utility driven, and to ask ourselves, how is the enhancement going to take place? Why it be changing the way we think, changing the way we work, or changing the way we practically do things, right? Then the other question is it opening new markets? Does it open new markets? I'll give you an example for that as well. 10 years ago, I went to Kenya, and there I was talking about Islamic finance and the innovation of technology that is coming through. And I flew from Malaysia to Nairobi. I was staying in a hotel, and I came out one morning just to take a walk, and I bought bottled water from a very, there's vendors or merchants on the side of the street, because I was told I should not be drinking tap water. So I bought a bottled water there. When I was paying, the merchant refused to take my cash. I asked why. He pulled out an old cellular phone and said, there is something called M-Pesa. We do not take cash, we only take money from that cellular device, e-money. And then he looked at me and said, do you not have this in your country? I didn't reply. He said, you must be from Zanzibar. And I laughed. So I went along with him to the hotel, and then we exchanged cash at the counter, and then the counter person had to pay in M-Pesa. Now think about it from a new market perspective. In Africa at that time, infrastructure wasn't very sophisticated as it is now, but they had e-money, and we didn't have that in Malaysia. The adoption of e-money was extremely none. 10 years ago, nobody actually knew about it, but it was happening in Kenya. Why? Because it addressed a problem that everyone was facing. The problem that everyone was facing was that due to the inflation, people had to carry lots of cash to buy things. And the distance, being a large country, the distance from one town to the other was fairly far. And in the midst, someone would just steal the money. So what M-Pesa actually solved was the security issue, that your physical money will not get nicked, right? That is innovation, and it opens new market. Does that diminish the functionality of how money is used? No. But does it actually enhance how money is used? Yes, it does. You don't have to carry physical cash, but you're doing the same thing what actually fiat or paper money does, right? So the functionality of money didn't change. The usefulness of it did through the M-Pesa application, right? And of course, customer-centric. Will people use that idea or that technology that I'm offering? Will people use M-Pesa? If it solves a problem, certainly yes. So we have to ask ourselves the question, does it address a real problem, right? So when we talk later, I'll tell you a little bit when we're discussing the life cycle. Dr. Kenan and I look at a lot of, evaluate a lot of startup pitches. And when generally young people pitch, they pitch from a tech standpoint, saying that, oh, this is an AI technology, or this is a blockchain technology. Doesn't matter. It could be AI, it could be blockchain, it could be neural networks or whatever, yeah? But as long as it doesn't address real problem and it is not utility driven, it's actually pointless, right? So when Dr. Kenan later talks about what technology is and what it does, it will make a lot more sense. Yeah. Next. When we talk about innovation, we need to talk about the concept of diffusion of innovation theory. Now, diffusion of innovation theory is simply put, is how an idea proliferates in our minds, right? There are people that you meet in real life that are very tech enthusiasts. They want cutting edge, bleeding edge technology. If Apple releases a new iPhone, they would want to be the first to get it. But then again, there will be people who couldn't care less, right? They're happy with what they have. And if it is serving their needs, they're fine with it. It could be an old or a legacy product, but they're fine with it. So how the quadrants in diffusion of innovation theory is that you, at the beginning, you have only a very few innovators that are risk takers, and they are the ones who are enthusiasts. They want to adopt new ideas. They want to be the first to use technology. Then comes the utility driven, right? Because when we are talking about innovators, they will just use it regardless of it being a viable solution, right? Solution may or may not be viable for everyone, but they will still use it, right? Because it's just something new. Then you have people who are utility driven, who look at the usefulness of improving what they do. It's not just having a fancy gadget, it's the usefulness of the gadget itself, right? So those are the early adopters of technology, but they look at it from what the gadget or the technology or the idea does do for them in terms of enhancing their productivity or increasing their knowledge, etc., right? Then you have the early majority folks. The early majority folks are ones that see that, okay, the early adopters, they have used it and it has worked. Now let's adopt it as well, right? Then you have the late majority folks. The late majority are the ones where their risk appetite is slightly less. They will adopt the technology, but they want to see what happens to someone else, right? We will adopt this, but we want to see what happened in another country. So they want to benchmark across a lot of use cases, and only then they will adopt. And then you have laggards. Laggards are the people that I talked about that don't really care. As long as what they have currently, it works, it's fine. They will not change, right? Now, this is very significant for startups. When startups come up with an idea and they want to then, get their idea out in the market, right? They will basically, first of all, get the enthusiasts attracted very first. Then they need the early adopters to come in. So early adopters to come in so that their idea becomes a lot more solidified. And when you're going to scale your business, it's about getting the early majority of folks or organizations to take up the idea, right? I'll give you an example. Electric cars is not a new concept. The first electric car came about in the 80s. And at that time, if you look at that electric car, it was slower than someone actually who rides bicycle. But it was a battery-powered car. You could sit on it, but it would go really, really slow. But it was an electric-powered car. Did innovators or enthusiasts used it? Yes, they did. And maybe some few utility-driven who are very conscious of the environment, right? But it was the innovators who used it, not the early adopters or others, right? So it was not an idea that could scale until Tesla came into being and they produced a Roadster, which took it off. So it was just like the car that you have, but better. It was faster than the normal engine. It was electric, so people who are environmentally conscious applies to them, and it had all the high-end tech shebang to it, right? So even for Tesla, it was the early adopters that Elon Musk actually pitched to. It was not the masses. The early adopters were the tech enthusiasts and also people who liked fast cars. And from there, it proliferated, and then they produced a car which is now for masses, which is under $50,000 or so, right? Roadster was a very specialized car for a very niche market. And from there, the idea proliferated to the masses, and now it's appealing to everyone. Right? Okay, now that hopefully I have defined what functionality, what utility is, and encompassing how innovation contributes to the utility aspect of ideas, let's talk about what do entrepreneurs do, right? Tech entrepreneurs in particular, yeah? Basically, tech entrepreneurs build businesses that are technology powered, and they aim to solve real world problem with adoption of technology. That is what they do, right? And there are some few questions that they ask themselves, right? Is there a real customer need for a certain product? It is not necessary that people may not need something, but they will still use it, right? I'll give you an example of something that was not needed, but people still used it. It was the iPad, right? Okay, I've got some hands raised. Perhaps if you could type your questions in the chat, and when Dr. Kenan is talking, I will address some of your questions then. And then also during the Q&A, we will open up for participants to ask questions, yeah? Okay, where were we? Yeah, iPad. iPad is a very good example of something which really didn't have a real world need, but people actually used it. Did we need an iPad to begin with? We had a laptop and we had a mobile phone. iPad was neither a laptop nor a mobile phone, and it was a very fragile thing. But when it was launched, and when Steve Jobs talked about it, he said he will create the need for it. So you can go either way. If you are someone as, I would say, enthusiastic as Steve Jobs, it may be right because you've had success in your iPhone and your laptops. Why not come up with something hybrid? There was no need for it to begin with, but people used it just because it was Apple and it was something new, right? Now we've developed need for it, but it took at least 10 years for it, right? And will people use that product or service? So there may not be need, but people might still use it, like the iPad. So it's a very tricky question to ask. The right way to go on about doing something would be, there is a need for it and people might use it. Sometimes there is a need for it and a need for it, right? And they don't end up using it. So these are very trivial questions that entrepreneurs need to ask themselves. Is there a real need for what I'm offering? And will people actually use it? The fourth question then they will ask is that, have I done something like this before? Right? If I'm not saying that if you do not have 15 years of experience as a banker, you should not go into being a fintech entrepreneurship. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that one must realize what their core competencies are. So if core competencies are lacking, of course, then one has to go and learn those skills, right? We'll talk about skill sets in a bit. So realization of, have I done something like this before? Or am I capable of doing something before? These are very personal questions, right? To ask. If you're honest to yourself, can I do this alongside what I have to offer, and will people use it? Would make a lot of sense. The other thing is, am I willing to give enough time for a certain project to succeed, right? It is sometimes people, they have daytime jobs and they start businesses on the side, right? And it works. But at sometimes you need to go all in and sacrifice a lot of other things. I'll tell you about myself. I mean, it would just be easier. I got into this running a startup about 3 years ago. Prior to that, I had ideas, but I didn't get into it. Why? Because as a minority growing up in a Western country, our mindsets are study lots and then start earning and saving. That was our mentality in a Western country, being a minority and being a Muslim. So it was about study lots, get a good job, and that's what you're supposed to do. And that's what I did exactly, right? I ended up becoming a civil servant, investment banker, etc. But the drive towards entrepreneurship came about whilst I was doing what I was doing, right? And at the same time, I was so comfortable with the job that I had that I didn't have to go towards this entrepreneurial route because of the level of comfortability that I had, right? I did not start things on the side in a big way, but of course I had things going on the side, but it was enough. But 3 years ago, when opportunity came and I felt that I had enough knowledge about a certain service or a product, and I could answer easily, is there a customer need of what I'm offering? Will people use my products? And have I done something like this before? When I had these things answered, then I said, okay, I'm going to give 101% of my energy and time into something that I want to do, right? So it is very crucial that you ask yourselves, if you are going into becoming a successful entrepreneur, to ask yourself these questions, and they are very private questions. You can share that with others, but you need to really ask them these questions to yourself. Right. Now that we've talked about, what an entrepreneur does, let's see what kind of challenges they face. And I can tell you there are plenty of challenges. Life isn't easy, and some of these challenges are quite profound. Number one is how to improvise, develop, improve, and even throw away an idea. anything as human beings, any idea that we think about, we think it is the best, it is life-changing, and it will change the world, right? That's what we think. We are the worst critique of ourselves. That is just human nature, and that's just me, right? It is a difficult question to ask. If I have spent a year or two or few months into developing an idea, will I have the guts to throw it out if it is not right? Or do I have the capabilities of continuously taking rejection and keep improving and keep improving? That is an extremely large challenge. Either we can chuck something aside, or we stick by our guts and keep improving upon it. So there are two ways out of it. Either you throw it away or keep improving. How do I develop an substance and style, right? Nobody is going to buy a product or a service or a service which does not have substance. That's just a given, right? But as an entrepreneur, one must have style too. Now, what do I mean by style? This is where the art of storytelling comes in. When you are to pitch an idea to an investor or to a user, your ability to communicate that idea to the audience matters a lot. Because you know your idea better than everyone else, but can you communicate that idea effectively, right? So having the ability to tell stories in a way that your audience gets captivated is extremely, extremely important. I'm sure a lot of you do watch TED Talks, right? And a lot of you have actually pitched in the past or sat as judges and hearing pitches. The idea may be fantastic, but the way a person communicates and the way they captivate you, yourself and the feelings around and the sentiments around you matters a lot, right? And this is a skill that can be learned. All that I've mentioned so far are skills that can be mastered and learned. There's no such thing as I'm not a born entrepreneur, so I will not succeed. No, there's no such thing. You can excel provided you have the right methodology and the right skill sets. And those skill sets can be learned. So the art of storytelling is something that one can learn, right? Happy to do whatever needs doing. And that is a very difficult question to ask. As Muslims, especially, it is a very difficult question to ask, because when you're doing business, you come along I can give you an example. Along the way, when you are raising funds, somebody might offer you huge amounts of money, but they may put their agenda into place. That what if you do something this way? And that is not something that you wanted to do in the beginning, but it will question your integrity. That should you do it now because you've been offered tens and thousands of millions, right? Would you do it? Would you do whatever it takes? So that is a very difficult question to ask. So as I defined earlier, what a successful Muslim entrepreneur is that they do not dilute their value sets. So whatever it takes, you do not dilute your value sets, because your success criteria is not just monetary. Your success criteria is also the impact that you make, right? So that is a challenge sometimes, because we will not use your product if your product does not satisfy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 criteria. And they may not be the right criteria for you or for what you stand for, right? How to cope with imperfection. That is also very important. And as I mentioned, this is a personal question. Imperfection in oneself and imperfection in the users. I'll relate this to what I had experienced when I was an undergraduate. It was my first day and we go in, and we had, and for the orientation, and our VP of QC and student development came about and said, I just want to make this very clear. We are not in the business of producing best doctors, best lawyers, or best businessmen. We are not in that business. And I was like, I flew took me 4 hours of flight and a different time zone just to hear this. And they're saying that they are not in the business of producing excellent doctors and engineers and lawyers, etc. What a waste. But the following sentence made sense. It said, what we are in the business of is providing you with the tools so that you can understand what your strengths and weaknesses are, and the tools for you to gain knowledge and to comprehend that knowledge, right? What you do with that knowledge, on how much of knowledge you accumulate, is up to you. We're just there to provide you with tools, and what you do with it is up to you, right? In 2006, it did not make any sense to me. But when I graduated and went into the industry, it made perfect sense. My growth is directly correlated to my ability to seek and comprehend knowledge. And what the university gave me were the tools. So the tools and the ability to understand what my imperfections are and how do I improve my imperfections mattered a lot, right? So these questions might seem, very vague or very personal, but they are the most important questions to ask and the most challenging question to ask. You can tweak a solution and add on a service and the product becomes great. But these are very profound questions to ask, and they define success and failure at the end of the day. So now that we've talked about what constitutes a successful entrepreneur, let's talk about startup life cycle. Let's say you have the right mindset. Now let's get into the grits of how to get from ideas to actual business, right? So it's divided into two. Actually, I could spend another 2 hours talking about it because it's very, very wide topic. It actually dictates a session on its own, but I will do it very quickly because I wouldn't want to take up Dr. Kinan's time as well. So from a product standpoint, in the very beginning, what you're doing is you're going into the ideation part. You have to accumulate ideas. You have to think about, will people use it? Is there a need for it, et cetera, and you come up with a minimum viable product. And that minimum viable product needs to be piloted. So then it goes into conducting a pilot with an organization. And this is where a lot of incubators come into play. You've got a very famous DIFC Fintech Hive incubator in Dubai. And I think they are expanding into the Gulf regions as well. So they run cohorts of how entrepreneurs can actually develop their ideas and conduct pilots to get use cases in, right? To see if it actually works in real life situations or not, right? So number one, you have to develop a base product that can be piloted. Secondly, after when you've done the piloting, you go and enhance the product, right? This is where the product fit and channel fit comes in. Product fit comes in the position of, will people adopt this particular product or service in a particular demographic? I'll talk a little bit more about this when I'm talking about the Wahid case study, and it will make sense. And when we talk about channel, again, it has to do with demographic. Is it viable in a certain community or a certain jurisdiction or not, right? Is there a big enough market for that particular product? So the product goes into the cycle of from ideation, and you build your minimum viable product, goes into getting the right pilot done so you can then release it into the right market with the right product and channel fit, right? Now, from a funding perspective, right, you start off with what we call it as valley of death. This is where you've got no income whatsoever. So what normally people do, they work for a while, they save up money, and then they start into this whole startup scene. And that is a very excruciating part, because all that you've earned is eating up into your savings, right? Because developing a product requires you to spend money, unless and until you're a diehard coder and you can code it yourself, which is highly unlikely. You do need a team, right? From there, you get your mom and pop and friends to invest into you, and you develop your MVP. When it goes after piloting, then you have organizational funds coming in, where VCs and organizations take interest in you and they fund your project. And this is where what I mentioned is one really needs to see if they are aligned with their core values, right? Brother, am I right on time, or have I taken up too much time from
I think it's fine now. You can conclude maybe in 1 or 2 minutes, then we'll hear from Dr. Kenan, inshallah.
Okay, so very quickly, let me just bring it together and talk about Wahid, right? All that I have said so far comes down to this. What Junaid did was, he is a very bright individual, and studied at University of Columbia in New York. And his idea was that I'm going to come up with a solution which basically ignites the essence of Sharia compliant investment among youth. And why did he choose United States of all countries, where I would say, I mean, the essence of Sharia compliant products is there, but the market size is very small, because only the Muslim community is going to use it, right? Why did he choose that? He chose, and this is where the channel and product fit comes in. Why? Because in North America, there was already a notion of micro investment from the community. People knew what micro investment was. There were products like Acorn, there were products like Robinhood that people were widely using, right? Now, what he added on top was the consciousness towards the Muslims, that they should save and invest, but they should be Sharia compliant as well. And from there, the idea just proliferated. They're very big in Malaysia and in the Middle East as well. Recently, they are evaluated at about 100 million USD, right? About 25 million from Saudi Aramco that they raised, right? But if you see, their core investment is still coming from the West. It's not that much from the East, but it's coming from the West. Why? Because the essence of investment and saving is not so prevalent. Here for us, I mean, at least in the context of Southeast Asia, is that saving is what our parents do. We spend, right? Whereas when you're a minority, it's all about saving, right? So he actually capitalized on that thought and grew. And then when he became big in North America, like any other thing, when something shines in the West, we welcome it with both arms. Ahlan, you have done very well in the West, you are welcome here. And we'll give you more funding so you can scale. The rest is history. They've got offices in Washington, in New York, London, and in Dubai as well, right? And of course in Kuala Lumpur as well. I will leave it at that now, and I'll let Dr. Kenan continue. And after that, I'll take, please type your questions if there's anything that you would like to ask, and I'll be answering it in the chat. And then after, when Dr. Kenan is done, we'll take some Q&A as well. Thank you very much for your time. And Dr. Kenan, it's all yours. I'll stop sharing.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Brother Ali. It was really very enjoying for me. I wish that you can continue, but I think we just have a limited time. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulullah. Thank you very much for University of Kuwait and Islamic Economic Association to inviting me for this. This is my second session with you, and I can see in the participants familiar names from the first session. If you remember the first session that when I came last time, we were talking about the collaboration between industry, Islamic banking, fintech, and the university R&D. In collaboration to build something, collaboration to incubate the innovation in Muslim countries. So from that, we moving toward the next step. What is the next step? Okay, I want to build this collaboration, but how I build it? So basically, if you go back to our history, Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab, when he has something very important issue, what he did, he went and asked the young people. So the key is with the young people. The people who are in the university, the students in the high school and the university. This is the key. And why he asked them? So Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, he mentioned that he was asking them, Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab, he was asking the young people for the solutions because they are smart. Because he knows they have a fresh mind and they are smart. And this is what exactly we need for the entrepreneurs, for the Muslim entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, the mentality that we have it right now in our young people that, okay, we go to the university and after university, we go to work, for example, in bank, in institution, and something like this. We lost that motivation to start our own business. We lost that motivation to take the risk, right? To take the risk and share the risk and build something new. And where we ended up in the situation where we impose all the technology. So this is where it comes to my mind that, okay, now where we have this opportunity to talk with the young people. So let's go and let's talk with them about entrepreneurship. And this is where Brother Muhammad and myself, we start to build this material, focusing on the entrepreneurship and focusing on planting the seeds for entrepreneurship, and specifically in Islamic fintech. Now, why in Islamic fintech? Because this is where we have the technology, and this is where we all of us are. We want to build an Islamic finance system, Islamic economic system that is helpful and that is beneficial for everyone. Now, going back to the topic here, so we're talking about technology. And why we're talking about technology in finance and banking? So technology is not something new. It has been there for a long time. The debit card, for example, it has been there from the 1950s, where the first idea coming. But again, the main point is it's not about the technology itself. It's about you as an entrepreneur. What is the idea and what is the solution that you are bringing and you are helping and make the life of the people easier? Right. So again, the functionality is the same, the financial intermediation, right? Now, what is the technology doing actually is automate that process. So last time, the cashier, the teller at the bank, he was counting by hand the money, right? Later, the machine comes, the counter machine comes, so it helps him. So it automate the process. Now, last time, it was automating the human labor. So he doesn't need to count by himself. Right? It's the labor that was taken away by the machine. But now the technology, what the technology is doing right now, it also not just replacing the muscle power, it also replacing the thinking power, the decision making. So it helps us to make decision. For example, the using of AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. We don't need, for example, to work to make an analysis to see if the customer have a credit worthiness or not. Now the machine, by building a right algorithm in the machine, it can do it in 3 seconds. In 3 seconds, it can do a financial assessment or credit assessment for a customer that we need 3 days to do that work. Right. So now the machine is helping us not just by reducing the labor, but also by reducing the time of thinking. So instead of focusing on that, now we focus more on the higher level of productivity. So it helps us to be more productive now by using our mind in the right way. When it comes to technology in finance and banking, right now we have a lot of technology in the last 10 years has been evolved from artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computing, blockchain, quantum computing. And today we are not going to focus on each one of the technology. Each one of them actually, it needs one webinar by itself, but we are just trying to get an overall view of what's happening. So, but what can fintech do for us? What kind of financing can help us? It can help us in the lending, in the financing part. It can help us in the personal financing. It can help us in the wealth management. It can help us in the insurance, the careful. It can help us in the payment, right? Payments and billing. So you don't need to pay using the check, you stay waiting for a few days to get your money, transfer the money. Now with the using of the e-wallet and the e-payment, all these things happening just in the real time. It helps us in the remittance, transfer the money from country to country. It helps us in the mortgage, right? And interestingly, there are some few advancement and technology have been used even in the decision of the Sharia compliant of the transaction. So what we have right now, we are starting to see application, or we are starting to see some kind of innovation toward the Sharia robo advisory for decision making. So what this Sharia robo advisory, it helps the Sharia scholar, it helps the Mufti, it helps the Sharia committee to make their Sharia decision by bringing all the resources, organize the resources, filter the resources, bringing all the evidence, the idea, the opinions from different schools, and just put it in one way for the Sharia scholar to make a decision in an easier and more meaningful way. And this is not just theoretically, those things, it is already in the market. So we already have those platforms for financing, from Ethis Crowd to Fantastic to Funding Society. We already have direct tech applications. We already have the personal financing. We already have the Sharia robo advisory applications in progress. We already have the insurance and takaful in progress, the wealth management, as mentioned by brother Muhammad Wahid, for example. We have it all already in the market. So those things already happen. And if you just go 10 years back, none of them was there. 10 years back, none of them was there. So you can just imagine what's happened in 10 years. And it's not just about the number, it's also about the quality or the magnitude of it. So for example, if you see Klarna, buy now, pay later application, which is widely in Europe, Klarna is now, the size of Klarna is much more than the biggest bank of the Europe, the Swiss bank, for example, and other banks. So you see one company, just one company is now the capitalization, the market capital for this is much more than the market capital of those banks that have been there for the last 40 and 50 years. Now, when it comes to Islamic fintech, what is the focus here, right? So yeah, I mean, we listen to Brother Muhammad, very, very good. And now, as a young people, as a students, I'm influenced by that, and I want to start my company and my fintech company. I want to start, I like this. I start to have this entrepreneur spirit. So where to start? You are talking about Islamic fintech, where to start? So in the beginning, when you think about Islamic fintech, you think about it from an overall perspective. And this is where it is very important. And we are very lucky today to have the discussion with the Sharia student, with the Sharia faculty of members. Why? Because you already have the establishment, you already have the Islamic code of ethics there. Yeah? You already have the mindset of evaluating the thing. So it's not just about doing a profit, but it's about having the maqasid Sharia in mind, right? You have maqasid Sharia, you have the objective of Sharia in mind. You have the rules, promoting and developing what is good, preventing what is harmful, right? You have this idea in your mind, and this is not just for us to teach in the classes and to do for the exam. It is for us to practice in our life. It is for us to establish our fintech startup based on those principles. So those principles is kind of life to life. It's not just kind of things in the books, right? Promoting justice, promoting equitable distribution of the wealth, promote high moral standard and ethical values, create a society of investors rather than debtors. And you see what's happening right now, where all the people using their credit card and using other innovation in the financial system, we end up with where most of the people, majority of the people are indebted. And when people are indebted, something small happening in the market, because the market is so fragile. So any event happen in the market, you see many people, they go for bankruptcy. Why? Because right now we are a society of debtors. We are not a society of investors. We are not sharing the risk, right? So having all this, those things in mind, ensure the wealth is not just circulated among the rich. So how, as a fintech entrepreneur, how can I ensure is it my responsibility? Yes, you need to think about it. How can I build a fintech startup that help the poor people, the middle class people, to circulate the wealth among themselves, right? How I can create more opportunity for them? How I create a new platform, for example, that help the people for being an investors, for example, right? And of course, we are very lucky that our Sharia rule is very clear. No riba, no gharar, no gambling, right? It should be in the real economic transaction. You should always have kind of risk sharing, profit sharing transaction. So we have the rules. It's about how we build successful startup based on these rules. When we talk about fintech, it's very important again to come back to the discussion about the functionality and utility. So again, the functionality here is on the financial intermediation, right? But what is the utility can fintech bring? Now, if you look at the fintech, why fintech is there? Fintech is there is to help people to make their life easy, to make their experience seamless, right? No frictionless there, right? So if you get back to what Prophet Muhammad Sayyidina Muhammad has teach us. So what did he say? Facilitate things to the people and don't make it hard for them. Yassiru wala tu'assiru. Make things easy for the people. Don't make it hard for them. And give them good tidings and don't make them run away, right? Now you just think about it as a financial institution, as a fintech startup. This is your role. Make life easy for people when they use your product, right? And this is the essence of the fintech. So have this message in mind. Have this role as an Islamic entrepreneur in mind. Making money, of course, we all want to make money. Make profit, yes, we might want profit. Sustainability on the long term, yes, we want to be sustainable in the long term. So having all these measures, but at the same time, having in mind that I'm building this startup because I want to facilitate things for people. I want to make things easier for people so Allah can make things easier for me, right? So having this mentality is very important when we establish our fintech startup. Why it's very important? Because as mentioned by Brother Muhammad, fintech startup is not easy. Startup itself is not easy. Entrepreneur life is not easy. There are a lot of ups and downs there, right? Today you are up, tomorrow you are down. You may be up for 3, 4 months, 6 months, and then you will just go down 180 degree, right? So how to manage this fluctuation? If you don't have that iman, right, that faith, if you don't have something that really you believe that I want to do it, whatever it takes me to do it, then you will not be able to go with this ups and downs. And this is where most of the people, they are afraid of doing their own business. They are afraid to build their startups. Why? Because they are in the comfort. They want to be in the comfort zone. I'm working in this institution. I'm very happy. I'm very relaxed. I get my salary, and that's it. I don't want to take a risk, right? While look at most of the Sahaba. Look at Prophet Muhammad. He was a trader. He was a businessman, right? Before the Nubuwah. And a lot of the Sahaba was there, businessman. They take the risk, right? So we need to re-infuse this spirit among the young people. And again, I believe this should be start within the people who are studying Sharia, studying the principles of Islam, studying the principles of Aqidah, because they have the right balance, they have the ethical, they have the code of the Islamic code of ethics, and now you prepare them to be the right to build the society. From the of course, some people will be Sharia scholars, some people will still go to the institutions, but then we need a number of people, right? A majority of people to go and start to build and start to take that risk and start to implement that essence of the of the risk taking and risk sharing. Now, when it comes to the product development, if I want, okay, I get the idea, I want to build my fintech startup, how I can develop that product? Is there a different way when it comes to Islamic fintech product that is different maybe from a conventional fintech product, right? So yes, first you look at your product. Of course, from conventional perspective, the innovation should be there, you are solving problems, but then you have something else as a Muslim entrepreneur, as a Muslim fintech entrepreneur. Does your solution help the people? Does your solution within the Islamic worldview, what kind of adding value you give it to your community, to your society? Now, you put your product there. Now you start to look at the details of the product. What about the contract? So you go micro. What about the contract? Is there any element of riba? And this is where we need to be very careful because we are dealing with financial transaction. So riba may present there. So is there any element of riba? So we should remove it. Is there any element of gharar fahish? Then we remove it. Is there any element for maysir? Then we remove it. Okay, so now you clean it from the contract element, from the micro perspective. Now you go up to more macro perspective. How about the content? How about the process? Is there any prohibited items there? Is the financial model is right and in line with the Sharia compliant? And is my product itself like promote justice? Is it give better for the humanity? So you look at what is the constitutional elements of my product. So for example, you may say that, okay, I will come, there is this, this trend now about buy now, pay later. It looks very profitable. Let me do it. Nobody in my country did it yet. So I will build this startup for buy now, pay later. But what about the consequences of this product? Did you think about it? Can you build a product in a way that you eliminate the bad consequences, right? Where, for example, you provide credit for the poor people to buy things they don't need, and then they find themselves in the end of the day indebted and they get for bankruptcy. So can you design it in the way so you eliminate that result, right? So we need to think about it. What is the consequential elements of my product, the product that I'm designing? And then in the end of the day, having this and ensure that my product is Sharia compliant. And now we come to the governance part. Okay, I follow all the steps. And now how to show it to the market that this is Sharia compliant product? Do I need to have my internal Sharia committee, Sharia advisor, or I need to get for outsider to outsource this, or maybe there is a committee on the central bank level that can approve that this is central bank or security commission level that can approve this is Sharia compliance product. So I get an endorsement from a body where I go to the market, I'm saying that this is Sharia compliance product. The market can trust because there is a body that endorse this as a Sharia compliant. So when we are working on Islamic fintech product development, we not just look at the last one, because this is where many of the fintech startups, they think about it. They will say, I will come up with any fintech product, and what I will do, I will just go to Sharia scholar or maybe the Sharia committee and ask them to endorse. So then they will try to find a way to halalize this product. And while we know that there are a lot of Sharia scholars, reputable Sharia scholars, we know that some people also, they may be lenient, so they may allow some element which is not really acceptable, right? So we don't want this. We want to have the full process from the beginning, the full thought process from the beginning, where your product helping the people, helping the community. There's no riba, gharar, maysir elements there. There's no prohibited items there. You promote justice and you help the people as well. And in addition for all this, it is endorsed as Sharia compliant product. So just to end up with the session, Ayo, we take much time. So just to end up with the session, a few things just to take away before we get the questions. First, have the foresight. Take the risk. Share the risk with the others. So this is very important things that you need to have it in mind when you go. And take the risk is very important because this is where your entrepreneurship is there. Entrepreneurship aspiration is there is by taking the risk. And remember that it's not you not just need to take all the risk, but you can share the risk with the others. So you don't need to get your fund there. You can get fund from someone who wants to share the risk with you, right? You go for the organization, they want to support you, for example. So share the risk with the others and be consistent, which is very important. Be consistent because there are a lot of up and downs there, and you need to be tough. You need to be consistent in the long term to be successful. Have the impact there and have the leadership spirit there for yourself and for your team, and be responsible for the results, for the end results, because this is going to affect you and this is going to affect the community as well. By that, I will not end the session here. I will open it for Q&A, so we have more interactive session. And I believe there are a lot of things, a lot of topics that maybe we're just going it very quickly. So if we have time to the today's session, we will cover it. If we don't have time, inshallah, we can cover it also in the future sessions. So please, Brother Muhyiddin, maybe you want to open the discussion, the Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kenan and Mr. Muhammad Ali Shah, for wonderfully presenting and addressing the topic, and for sharing your thought, understandings, and how to plant the seeds for an entrepreneurship. New entrepreneur with the Islamic fintech technology. So thank you very much. And now we open the floor for Q&A. So we can see some of the attendees raise their hand. Let's see, and let's listen to them.
If I may add, Dr. Muhyiddin, there are two questions that are posted. Perhaps we could address them first.
Yes, please.
There's a question from Mr. Muhammad Ishaq Umar. He's asking, is it acceptable in Sharia to empower someone or add strength to his capital and agree to be sharing the calculated profit, say 50-50? When the loss comes, you also bear it the same way? Yes. When we're talking about profit sharing, we should also talk about risk sharing. Like Dr. Kenan just mentioned, one doesn't have to take all the risk. The risk is basically divided in terms of the equity that one holds within a certain organization. Then there are certain contracts that perhaps Dr. Kenan can allude on a little bit more, because since he's the scholar here, like Murabaha or, for example, which is based on equity-based risk-sharing model. And one can sign up and bring in investors based on those contracts, basically. I'll quickly address the other question, and Dr. Kenan can address them both equally and add to it. Assalamu alaikum is from Rida. My question to me and Dr. Kenan, are those competencies, including hard skill and soft skill, reached to prepare the future of human resources in fintech? Any advice to educators in higher education? Many thanks. Yes. Now, this is actually a very profound question. What I will do, I will send a deck to Dr. Muhyiddin, which actually addresses the competencies that are emerging in the tech era currently, specifically in the Islamic finance side. If we look at it in the 80s, you needed to be very specifically skilled in one thing. If you are let's say in a bank, if you are a risk person, you only were concerned about risk. You were only crunching risks. If you are an accountant, you are only concerned about finance and accounting. If you are a frontliner, front-facing, you're only concerned about building relationship with people. You are not concerned about product development. You are not concerned about compliance, and you're not concerned about accounting. Your skill was very specific, right? And this is in the 70s and 80s. Now it's the other way around. One needs to be multi-skilled, right? Meaning to say, a successful relationship manager doesn't, what they need is a skill in, of course, communication, how they communicate to the clients, but at the same time, they need to understand behavioral science of people. So you need to be somewhat aware of the behavioral science about how people react to certain things. right? So this is where data knowledge comes into play. So you collect all these data through tech means, and the interpretation of that data is very important. So you need to be somewhat tech savvy from a data analytics perspective, right? As a frontliner, a relationship manager. Now, if you're talking about compliance side, you need to have the know-how of how a product is developed. You need to have the know-how of Sharia as well, because when you're evaluating risk, you're not just evaluating based on the business risk or operational risk as well, but you're also evaluating based on Sharia risk as well. So the knowledge of Sharia, the knowledge of data crunching is fairly important for risks and compliance people as well, and likely goes to Sharia people as well. They, of course, are vital when it comes to the entire governance of a bank, but the importance has to be given to their understanding towards product development. How the product is marketed. Is it marketed the ethical way or not? Most of the time, the product may be Sharia compliant, but the marketing may not be Sharia compliant, right? So the operational aspect of how a bank is run is very important for Sharia people as well. So not only they need to have the Sharia knowledge, they need to have finance knowledge at the same time. They need to understand how conventional banks work, how technology works. Like Dr. Kenan mentioned recently, now the emergence of robo-advisory is coming into play, and this is going to make Sharia scholars work a lot easier, because it's going to give the information in one place as opposed to you going out and looking for it, right? And it can also tell you if a certain product is compliant or not compliant and what to do to make it compliant. But in order to fathom that, one needs to understand what's the technology behind it, right? So Sharia scholars need to basically have competencies in finance and accounting, operational competencies, and also tech competencies as well. As I mentioned earlier, inshallah, I will send a deck to Dr. Mahyuddin, and he can probably disseminate to rest of you, which actually tells you what are the emerging skill sets that are required, from hard skills to soft skills, and where are the leakage is. Meaning to say, data scientists are 50% going to be vital for the next 2 to 3 years, something of that nature. UI, UX developers need to be, that skill is important for the next 10 years for that matter. So I will send all that material, inshallah, to Dr. Mahyuddin soon.
Or Mr. Shah, we may have another session maybe on that, maybe in near future.
Fantastic. We can, happy to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Dr. Kenan, would you like to add
something? Yeah, please.
Yeah. I think you beautifully summarized it in the 3 aspects about having the having Sharia knowledge, finance knowledge, and technology knowledge. In addition to the entrepreneurship, if I may add something, when it comes to entrepreneurship, try to do it yourself. So not just like you study courses, videos, and try to do something by yourself. And this is where you start to build your learning process, by trying to be an entrepreneur and see what it will take you to how it will take you to the next step.
Okay, I think there is no more written question, but there are some attendees raised their hand. Let's see if they wanna say something. Mr. Walid Alenji, Mr. Walid, welcome. Ahlan wa sahlan. If you have something or any question, please. Hello. Hello. Okay, let's listen to Ustada Layla. Ustada Layla with us. Please welcome Ustada. Ustada Layla Badri, are you with us? Okay, I think they raised their hand maybe earlier and they got the answer maybe from the discussion. So Ibrahim Maroon, brother Ibrahim Maroon, we open microphone for you already.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I'm very happy to join this course. I'm from Senegal, living in UAE.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, this course, it can, if I, for my opinion, if it can make it 2 months, 3 months or more, that is coming well. Because of me, I like too much business, and that one I like it. I like too much business, and this is too much. I have more learning for this course, and for this doctor. I cannot speak English too much, but if someone speak, I understand well. I can speak Arabic and French only. Yeah, but I take more things for this course. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ibrahim. Yeah, your English is good, not problem. We can understand your English.
Thank you.
When you talk more, it will be fine. Thank you so much. Yeah, every Thursday we do programs in English every Thursday. So you can join in every Thursday in English program, and we do have also other Islamic financial programs, talks in other days under the same umbrella. Islamic. Thank you very much, Mr. Ibrahim. Yes, Mr.
There is one question. Yes. There is a question here. It says, while taking the first step towards Sharia compliant fintech startup through a family business in footwear industry, as there are some legal prohibitions on non-Muslim countries, connecting it by sustainability and creating demand, what steps should be taken continuously? Very good question. Now, I'll tell you about Sister Burgess, which runs a modest fashion outlet in London. Sister Burgess is what Jimmy Choo is to shoes. But I'm going to use Sister Burgess because what she did was absolutely different. So, for example, if in our part of the world, it is very generic to say that anything that comes from the West is of good quality and it's really great. What Sister Burgess did in London is the opposite. What comes from the Muslim world is of good quality and is great. When it comes down to sustainability, one has to be true towards their value sets. And again, one has to say that, again, when we go back and see, will people use my product or is there a need for it? If you're talking about shoe wear, of course, the type of leather is very important. It has to be halal and whatnot. What you can do is, and it definitely would appeal to the broader Muslim community in the Western country. I can tell you, although France is considered to have the highest number of Muslims in the Western society, but in the UK, when you look at it from a socio-economic standpoint, Muslims are quite high up on the pedestal from their economic capabilities and also intellectual capabilities, right? So if you can get, for example, a halal authorities to stamp it as halal. So in Malaysia, we have an JAKIM, which is an organization, a government organization, an authority to stamp halal on a product, which makes it viable for all Muslim consumption. So it's not only restricted to something that we consume, but it's also like toothbrushes and the jacket that I wear. If it's a leather jacket, what kind of leather is it, or shoes and etc. So I'm sure in Europe there would be a body that does, which you may call it, authenticate something as halal. But also at the same time, in Malaysia, JAKIM does international certification as well. So if you're concerned about the validity of the halal certification, I would suggest that you would look into getting halal certification from Malaysia, because it's cross jurisdictional certification. But I'm sure in the UK there will be some certification there. But from an entrepreneurial perspective, I would say again, your success is the measure of the amount of profit you bring in, and at the same time, the impact you bring in. If you can ignite consciousness in the Muslim population in Europe that what I wear, I need to care about what the leather type is it halal or not? That is your contribution, and that is a huge impact that you would create. So the step would be to create awareness, right? You have all the platforms available to you. You've got Facebook, you've got Instagram. Reach out to the Muslim communities online and ignite the essence of what halal constitutes, right? And I'm sure there are communities there. You may also want to look into some communities, networking communities like AA communities in Singapore. They are strong advocate run by Sister Ida Aslan, whereby you can be part of their movement in halalizing outfit consumption and the importance of halal, etc. So there are lots of communities that you can be part of for advocacy purposes. Now, there's another question which I think Dr. Kenan is better suited to address. It says, I have a question: from where to start in Islamic finance to learn it correctly? Is there an electronic course or certificate in Islamic finance that I can join, whether in Arabic or in English? Dr. Kenan, that is more suited towards you, as an academic.
Okay, there are a lot of resources to learn Islamic finance and a lot of institutions. For example, INSEF providing postgraduate, master, and PhD in Islamic finance, IIUM, and other institutions in Malaysia. Same thing in Kuwait. I believe University of Kuwait, they provide something similar, and other universities. But here I want to highlight two things. So first, yes, you can go in academic way and you can register in those academic institutions. You study just in academic way, but it's very important to keep tracking what's happening on daily basis, right? So for example, we have this interesting webinar happening every week, right? With the Islamic Economic Association, Nadi Iqtisad Islami. So please keep updating yourself. So because what you maybe learn in the university, it is maybe 6 months back, 1 year old, right? But what you have here, what you are listening here, this is what's happening today. So you need to have this both thing in mind, and at the same time, do it by yourself. Try it. So now today we are talking about Islamic fintech. You like it, okay? Why not you try it? You see this for example, this is a robo-advisory product. Try it. This is e-wallet, Islamic e-wallet. Try it. This is crowdfunding. Try it. So try things by yourself and get the sense of that one. So just not be just from the theoretical perspective. Do it by yourself as well. You talk about sharing the risk. Try to share the risk and see how you feel when you share the risk. When you may lose the money. Okay, good. See what you feel when you lose the money. Okay, build the trust. So my sincere advice, yes, do it in academic way, but at the same time, do it in the practical way as well.
Okay, thank you very much. We just take 2 minutes to play short
one question. There's just one question that I would like to address, if it's okay, very quickly, because it's a very profound question. How can we help customer for all needs in one product? There is no such thing as one product that solves all your problem. Bottom line, there is no one product. What is happening is that you have platforms that are interconnected with various other products. This is what we call it as technology ecosystem, right? Whereby you have a platform which is interconnected to various other products. For example, you have a core banking solution, right? Which looks at deposit taking, et cetera, but then there is another solution which is linked to the core banking system, which facilitates assessment of compliancy, right? Then there will be another product which looks at CRM, customer relationship management. Then there will be another solution which looks at procurement specifically. Then there will be another solution that looks at human resource. So you have one big platform and it is connected to various other solutions via an API. Right. Again, if time permits, we can actually have a session on this as well, right? How do we connect and build ecosystems around tech products? So just bear in mind, there is no one solution. There will never be a one solution, no matter how hard we try, because one can specialize in one aspect. You can bring other solutions in and connect to your solution, that's fine. But you need to have a conducive ecosystem to do it, right? Hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Mr. Alisha. Dr. Kinan, I think there is a last question I can see from Mustafa Shahid, though that was actually indirectly addressed in the session. What are the differences between Islamic fintech and that of conventional?
Okay, so I'll answer very shortly in 2 items. First, from the surface, Islamic fintech is Sharia compliant. Okay, so we don't deal with the riba, with interest, with gharar fahish, with gambling. So this is just from the upper, I would say, from the outside. Okay, but what we are discussing here is Islamic fintech is more than this. It's not just like you are just filtering the haram items. It's more about going back to the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yassiru wa la tu'assiru. It's more about how you create value to the people, how to facilitate things for the people, how to make things easy for the people. What is the adding value you put it there? Okay, so you have your Sharia compliant, I would say, checking list there. No riba, no gharar, no gambling. But at the same time, you focus on how you create value, how you help the people. What is the niche market that you are trying to serve? Those are not served. Those are not well served by the current financial or Islamic financial institution right now. How can I help them? So for me, this is what Islamic fintech should be about.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kinan, for your clarification. So we take 2 minutes for a short video on how to collect certificates from our web link. So please enjoy. And then if we have maybe 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes, we can take some more questions, inshallah. So نقدم لكم فيديو الإعلان لمنصة جديدة مدارج إصدار الشهادات. ندعوكم لمشاهدة الفيديو. شكرا. There is no sound. Ustaz Yahya.
سعيا لخدمة طلبة العلم والارتقاء بمستوياتهم، يسر نادي الاقتصاد الإسلامي الإعلان عن منصة مدارج لإصدار الشهادات، بوابة خاصة لكل طالب، إمكانية التحقق من مصداقية الشهادات، إمكانية تغيير الاسم، كيف تعمل المنصة. بعد حضورك إحدى المحاضرات التابعة لنادي الاقتصاد الإسلامي، يقوم النادي بإنشاء حساب شخصي لك، ثم تصلك رسالة إلكترونية عبر البريد تحتوي على رابط المنصة، اسم المستخدم، كلمة المرور. قم بالضغط على رابط المنصة، ثم أدخل اسم المستخدم كما هو موضح في الرسالة، وأيضا كلمة المرور. ثالثا، اضغط على شهاداتي. بعد الدخول إلى لوحة التحكم الخاصة بك، قم بالضغط على شهاداتي. هنا سوف تظهر لك جميع الشهادات الخاصة بك. بإمكانك الضغط على تحميل لتحميل الشهادة. كما يمكنك تعديل الاسم بالضغط على تعديل الاسم الكامل وكتابة الاسم الصحيح. انتبه، يسمح لك بتعديل الاسم الكامل مرة واحدة فقط. الرجاء التأكد من كتابة الاسم الصحيح. بعد ذلك قم بالضغط على حفظ. كما يمكنك تعديل كلمة المرور وإدخال كلمة مرور قوية. تم تسجيلك في منصة الشهادات بنجاح. مرحبا وأهلا بك في منصة مدارج الخاصة بشهاداتك في نادي الاقتصاد الإسلامي. شارك الآن وارتق معنا بسلم عضويات النادي. نادي الاقتصاد الإسلامي، التأصيل والتميز.
Okay, thank you very much to Ustaz Yahya and Technical Committee of Nadal Iqtisad Islami for this wonderful initiative led by Dr. Al-Ubaid. Thank you so much. So I think if Dr. Kenan and Mr. Ali Shah allows us to conclude the session, or you want to share something before we conclude the session. Please, Mr. Ali Shah, please, welcome.
I would just like to thank I would just like to thank the organizers for having us and giving us this opportunity to share experiences and answering some of the questions, and they were very profound questions. If any of you have further queries, feel free to reach out to Dr. Kenan and I. We've got our social media information there, I think. Please do reach out, and then we can have further discussion. And if I suppose opportunity comes by, Dr. Muhyiddin can have us back in, and we can talk a lot more about this topic. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Dr. Kenan, before you start your concluding remark, there is a request from Ustad Nasir Muhammad Al-Misri, who joined every session with us. So I think we can just hear from him.
Actually, I wanted to sacrifice my concluding remark for him because I think he wants to comment. So please.
Nasir Muhammad Al-Misri, ahlan wa sahlan. Please welcome.
حياكم الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
شكرا جزيلا لكم على هذه المحاضرة الطيبة. راح أحاول أتكلم باللغة الإنجليزية أو بالعربي اللي أقدر عليه يعني، وأرجو المعذرة.
تفضل.
الحديث حول الفنتك وحول يعني المشاريع ودعمها والانتربرنورشيب وغيرها حديث جميل، لكن بتطبيقاتها على أرض الواقع يعني شيء مختلف تماما. أنا أعتقد أن عندنا إمكانيات هائلة، عندنا تريليونات الدولارات في العالمين العربي والإسلامي، لكن وينها؟ هل ساهمت في حل مشاكلنا؟ هل دعمت اقتصاديات السوق؟ هل دعمت مشاريع الشباب، رواد الأعمال أو غيرهم؟ ما سوت شيء. أموالنا موجودة في البنوك السويسرية، لكن البنوك السويسرية تأتي إلى بلداننا وتبحث عن فرص بأموالنا الموجودة عندهم. كل اللي أطلبه منكم أنكم أنتم الآن قاعد تروحون طرح طيب، لكن الواقع ما عندنا venture capital، ما عندنا angel funding. We don't have all of these things. The concept itself is good. The idea itself is good, wonderful. But we don't have the insurance companies or the reinsuring companies that will cover what's so-called the entrepreneurship programs or ideas that will support whatever, person that comes from Arab or Muslim world. What comes from Muslim community in Europe and United States is something different than the Muslim world. The Muslim world is suffering. It has nothing to do with venture capital or what's so-called angel funding. What I'm trying to say is, please, the talking is killing us. We know all of these things. We are thankful for whatever ideas that you are bringing, but it's not enough. We need the Malaysian or Indonesian or whatever who are having these kinds of ideas. Please come with your own banks. Take part of the money that we have, reuse it again to support the entrepreneurship that we have in the Arab and Muslim world. The banks here in Arab and Muslim worlds, most of them are not making the effort to support what's so-called the entrepreneurship. They don't like to take the risk itself. It's just a regular way of financing projects, but they are not what's so-called companions. They are not partners. They don't like to take the share of risk with you. Please try to do something different. Our youth are fantastic. They can do a hell of a good job. They are well educated, well trained, but it's not enough if we don't have the money, the advisory board, the coaching system that will go along with their own way of life. Otherwise, we can talk forever. And the reality is we are not using the money to the maximum. We are not using the health or the wealth to the maximum. And we are just wasting our time, and we are going backward day after day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Nasser, for this very insightful actually comment. I will start first, and then I will give it to Brother Muhammad. There's two aspects there. So you mentioned about like connecting people from different countries, and I believe this is what we are trying to do, and this is actually what digitalization is helping us. So today we have from University of Kuwait, it's organized by University of Kuwait. We are like live streaming from Malaysia, the audience from different countries, and this is where this kind of interconnections between different people from different countries with different strengths, right? Some people have the money, some people have the mind power, some people have the energy to work, some people have the infrastructure or the place where you can establish a successful startup. So this is where this kind of collaboration is very important, and what we need to increase this kind of interconnections between the people from different Islamic countries. And when we say interconnections, like for example, you are in Kuwait and there's a very good opportunity in Indonesia, for example, and they need some money to bring that one, but you don't know about it. So how to bring all these things together? This is where, so you see right now, you already highlighted the need. So there is a need for this one. And this is where Islamic fintech entrepreneurs, they should come and like fill this gap, providing a platform where it connects together people with a capital with the people with the great ideas, right? In one platform. If we want to wait until the banks help and support, that will never happen, right? So we need to build this kind of mindset, and we need to build this kind of platforms. This is one thing. The other thing I want to mention, it's also about building the trust. And this is very, very important and crucial. If you trust the people around you, if you trust the young people in your university, for example, so start to support them, right? If you start to trust the young people in your family, start to support them, give them the fund. If you don't have the fund, I'm sure you know the people who have the fund. So try to link them together, and you play the role of kafil, right? You guarantee them, oh, I am the kafil, I'm the guarantor of those young people because I believe in their idea, I believe in their spirit. So you bring them the fund for this one. Don't wait for the banks. That will not help anymore. Yes, please, Brother Muhammad, do you want to add something?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So very rightfully said, and very eloquently as well. I feel exactly what Dr. is feeling. There needs to be more work done. Absolutely, 101%, I agree. But measures have been made. So, for example, specifically on fintech, there is a DIFC fintech hive established in Dubai, which is run by the regulators of UAE, and they run cohort programs for young entrepreneurs to join their program. They provide them with mentorship. They provide them with initial seed capital to start off with their ideas. So these are small initiatives, and I absolutely agree with you that these ideas need to scale more. In Malaysia as well, we do run cohorts, and I think Dr. Kenan's initiative at NCF is going to bear fruits, whereby when they start running their own in-house cohorts as well, whereby providing entrepreneurship with knowledge, at the same time providing them with seed funding so that ideas can proliferate. This is where mentorship is very important, and this is where agencies need to collaborate. I was working for a government agency which was solely mandated to actually digitalize the nation and to develop talent, to provide startups with market access, and at the same time get their ideas across the border. A lot of our startups have actually now registered with the DIFC in Dubai. things are happening, but they are happening at a very slow pace. This is because what Dr. Kenan mentioned is that it has to do with a lot about G2G government policies. It has to do with what you may call it trust as well, right? So things are happening, but you're absolutely right. We need to speed it up because a lot of ideas are going to waste if we do not do this. So yeah, those are my sort of 2 cents on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kenan and Mr. Muhammad Ali Shah. It was indeed a very, very wonderful session today. And inshallah, we are going to have more sessions with you in near future. We under this in collaboration with Nadal Iqtisad this time as well. So we thank all attendees and participants from around the world, more than 170 participants today. And thank you very much for your participation and attendance in this session. And we thank all the members and executive members, especially Director General of Nadal Iqtisad Islami, Dr. Ala Al-Ubaid, and those who help and in this session and other session as well. So thank you very much and see you soon again. And may Allah bless us all. May Allah accept our efforts and time. And with that, we conclude the session here today. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
نادي الاقتصاد الإسلامي لكل طالب علم يبحث عن التأصيل والتميز.